Welcome. Welcome to Unmasked. I'm your host, Jason Fortune. It is 7:03 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. I'm broadcasting in from 9,400 feet in the high Rockies. Tonight's a real special show for a couple reasons. One, we are broadcasting live on Substack for the first time. So anybody that happens to be tuning in, welcome. Welcome to Unmasked. This is a space that goes where other shows will not go. We talk about the hard stuff. We talk about the stuff that needs to be talked about. So all of you in Substack land that tune in now or tune in later, thank you. Everyone on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, thank you very much. And the second reason why tonight is such a special show, you don't have to sit here and listen to me talk for 45 minutes. We have someone very special with us. She's been with us before, Kharma Lindsey. She is the founding facilitator for Sage Collective. And also, she has many alphabet. She has many. What is the word I'm looking for? She has. I'm stumbling. I'm sorry. In the Western world, she has a lot of degrees that support what she's doing. In the spiritual world, she's got a lot of, I don't even know how to say it, a lot of spiritual degrees that support what she's doing. And tonight, we are talking about something that is very important. I personally believe it's probably one of the cornerstones of a lot of the problems that we face, and it is the mother wound. And by no means, I don't even want to pretend tonight that there's much I have to say other than I know that I suffer from a very large mother wound. Kharma is leading a retreat that I am lucky and honored to be a part of coming up that focuses on the mother wound. And so because of all that and the time that we've been spending together in her sessions and her Zoom sessions as we get ready for this medicine retreat, we decided it was a perfect time to have a show. And she was extremely busy today, but she has amazing amounts of energy, and she's here tonight to talk with us. Before we get going with Kharma, what is the one thing we always do? Anytime we get together, anytime you come into Sage Collective, anytime you're part of anything that has to do with Unmasked or Sage, what is it that we do? That's right. We take time to center. We take time to look around the room and see where we're at. What's the temperature of the room we're sitting in? It's Saturday night. We're all together. Let's take our first breath together. In through the nose. Take it all the way to the top. Fill your lungs. And now release through the mouth, slowly like you're blowing out through a straw. And at the bottom, just rest for a second. Just sit there in the gap. Now take a big, deep breath in through the nose again. And when you get done and you release, let's make an audible sigh. And shake it out. Shake it out, any tension in your shoulders, any tension in your jaws. Let's all be here together. One more big breath in through the nose. All the way to the top. Now release through the mouth slowly. Let's all take a moment and be here. And while we're here, let me go ahead and read a poem to you real fast. I learned to read your face before I learned to read words, to measure the room before I entered it, to shrink my needs down to something manageable, something you could love. My became easy. My became quiet. My became good. And still, there was a distance I could never cross. So I built a life around the absence. Called it strength. Called it independence. But underneath it, there is still a child with her hands out, waiting. So, without further ado, and on the heels of that poem, let's go ahead and bring on in Kharma. Hi, Kharma.
Hi, Jason.
How'd that poem hit with you?
Yeah, that poem, man, it's got some truth in it. In fact, every single word, truth in it. And what struck me the most was this image of the child with its hands out, but also this mental picture of that divide. You know, that feeling that there's never a way to actually reach emotionally or be reached by our parent. And yeah, that was a beautiful illustration of what we're talking about tonight.
Good, I'm glad you liked it. Like I said before, when I started the session, this isn't a conversation I can have. This isn't something. My other shows that are or sessions I've hosted by myself, I felt confident in doing and saying, but this is something that, this is tonight. It's your platform to talk about this, and as we go through this, and use me as we do, talk about my story if it's applicable or if it can help somebody. But this is something I wanted the audience to hear you talk about, Kharma. So let's start. Let me pull up these parts of my notes real quick. First question, and this is the one that we need to kick it off anyway. When we say mother wound, what does that mean? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, we're talking about what we would refer to as one of those little t traumas that are not little at all. This is the evidence of what we were supposed to get and didn't get in childhood. And for many people, we would never look at our childhood and say, oh, I was ever neglected, or I was ever, my needs were unmet, because most of the time we think of, our physical needs. We had food, we had clothing, we had shelter. Our parents took us to school, they picked us up. I mean, for heaven's sake, most of us were in sports, they were sitting in the stands. How could we possibly be neglected or have a mother wound? But simply put, the mother wound is childhood emotional neglect. And when I talk about emotional neglect, it doesn't mean that we had bad parents. It doesn't mean that they meant to be harmful. But what it does mean is that there were ways and places that they were unable to attune to us. One of the simple things that we know as a fact about childhood is that we're wired for connection from the moment we're born. And we don't see ourselves clearly. We see ourselves through the eyes of our parents. And so when our parents' eyes are busy paying bills and making money and supporting the household and taking care of all of the what I would consider the adulting behaviors, it doesn't always leave a lot of time for those eyes to fall on us. And if the emotional attunement isn't present, for us to really feel seen, for us to feel like, wow, I matter, or, see ourselves through the eyes of our parents. And that's what we're really talking about here. We're talking about those things, those ways that we are able to connect to our own emotions or not, because that was modeled for us. And so the mother wound impacts us in three primary ways. It impacts us from lack of protection, lack of nurturance, and lack of guidance. Those are the three main categories, I would say, when we look at childhood emotional neglect and how it manifests forward.
Okay, so what are the most common ways when you're working with your clients, when you're working with us? How do you see this showing up?
Oh, great question. Man, it is pervasive. It really is. One of the classic ways that the mother wound shows up for us as adults is we don't have words for our emotions. Or we have the primary five, right? Anger, sadness, that kind of thing, but we don't really have an awareness or a way of processing the emotions we feel. And so that leads itself to many different things. We medicate, right? We self-medicate, we distract ourselves, we go on the defensive. There's all kinds of ways that we will distract or to direct our eyes away from those emotions, because we were never shown that it was okay to feel them. In fact, for a lot of us, it was like, oh, don't feel that. That gets you rejected.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the primary ways that I see this show up in adults is either an unawareness of our emotions. Like we feel the feel, but we don't know what it means. We can't get the information from the emotion because we're so accustomed to just not. Or we feel the emotion, but we don't know how to process it. We don't know how to actually get the information from the emotion. Another really common way that childhood emotional neglect or the mother wound shows up is hyperindependence. And hyperindependence says, I've got to do it myself or it won't get done. I've got to do it myself because I can't depend on other people. And this is a really common one that we see, especially here in the West.
When we've been talking, or when I'm in our Zoom sessions, and I'm not bringing anything that shouldn't be brought in, of course, you've talked about stuff: overgiving, self-abandonment, difficulty feeling or expressing our needs, emotional shutdown and overwhelm. Will you tie that in for everyone? Those feelings and how
So
that.
difficulty expressing our needs, emotional overwhelm and shutdown. Man, if we don't know what the feel is we're feeling, of course it's going to overwhelm us. We're going to shut down. If we have feelings that we've been taught are not okay, we're going to suppress them. We're going to push them down. We're going to move forward anyway. That whole carry on anyway. Um, and some of the ways that we mask, I love it that we're here on Unmasked talking about our masks, is that we will overgive or we will neglect our own needs in favor of other people. When it comes from a limbic trigger, it's known as the fawn response. But when we are young and we don't have a parent who is able to show up for us, and worse yet, a parent who's, maybe we're even parenting them ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we start to put our own needs on the back burner. We start to actually get a program inside our default mode that says we're not okay to have needs, right? Jason, how did that show up for you? That one I know did hit home pretty hard for you.
I mean, like I did say, as I'm recognizing how my young childhood was, I have said my mother was more of a kind of an evil stepsister than she was a mom, and there wasn't my needs weren't met, and like we've seen in our group, people saying, and me too, I was not I didn't come from a touching family. There wasn't a lot of hugging. I was definitely more of an emotional child, and it freaked everyone out too. And coming home at night, or coming home and my mom slides across some hamburger helper and a glass full of milk, and then cruises back to her bedroom to read a book for the rest of the night, and that's all it is. That's my evening at home, and so then I move on to my bedroom by myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me I want you to ask me these questions, Karma, too. And when I take a moment to respond, I'm just pulling back to the questions. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and honestly, this is like we saw, and this has been, I have been working very hard for a couple of years now, even longer, to really be able to deal with my complex PTSD and be able to operate in the world and be a good husband and not just be wrapped up in myself. And this is honestly, this layer we've gotten to, this is some intensely serious work. I've been dealing with a lot of others and it's been complicated too, but this one, it hits hard and it brings, like we've seen, it brings up my protector energy, and there's a lot that comes through this, and to not go that deep, what we talked about, and to not go into a deep overshare, I realized that my protector energy was my family, was my safe space, and my mom and my dad. That energy was, and I know that's deep to talk about, and we can talk about it more later, but as you and I have been moving through stuff, that's what I've been coming to realize. So talk to me on this, and I'll say it this way. Or will he use me again? My needs weren't met early on. I didn't just lose connection with someone else. I lost the connection with my own internal compass. So speak to those parts now, if you would.
Yeah. So this is what makes it so impactful to so many people. And that is, we will look back at our childhood and say, no, of course I wasn't neglected. I wasn't abused. Majority of people who we don't say, oh, yes, there was identified abuse. We have an Overton window or how we see the world and what's normal. And all we have for a reference is our own childhood. But if we really look at our childhood and ask ourselves, did I feel seen? Did I feel valued? Did my voice matter? These are all the things that we are learning through the reflection in our parents' eyes of ourselves. And so it's not so much what we lose in connection with other people, although attachment issues are directly related to this. So don't get me wrong, that is a big thing. And that's a whole nother show. But what we see here is our connection to our own inner compass. Like you just said, not just our inner compass, but our own personal truth, what we want, what we like, who we are. We lose touch with that. And so, yeah, it definitely can manifest forward as masking, as someone that is palatable, because we had to do that with our parents in order for us to get our needs met. And I don't mean food, shelter, clothing. I mean connection, real connection, really being seen, really having that interaction, really feeling safe and provided for, being nurtured, being guided. A lot of us had to perform in order to receive that.
Are my early unmet needs, with the inconsistency and the unsafe spark, there was the lack of nurturance, the lack of attunement, the lack of protection. And honestly, like you said earlier, to back up what you said, I did not recognize any of this as abuse. And then now there's other big T trauma abuse around me, and we know that. But I'm talking about this part right here is I didn't recognize that. You know what I mean? And I don't feel that a lot of people do recognize this kind of the neglect component that really affected them and affects them. The reason we seek, in my 20s, I was telling Caroline earlier, I don't know what the right word I'm trying to say. I sought so much male approval. You know what I mean? I needed what I looked everywhere else what I couldn't get. And I think that
Yeah,
flows through a lot of people this way.
absolutely. And it's normal to need approval. It's normal to need connection. Because if you think about it, approval is one step further than connection. Connection is I see you. Approval says, and I approve of you. And you have to be seen in order for someone to approve of you. And for a lot of us, it's that being seen component. What you just described there with the hamburger helper and the milk, like that's not being seen. That's your basic needs being provided for.
Yeah.
But where was the Jason, how was your day? Wow, you're quiet. There's something on your mind. Someone actually leaning in, seeing you, and caring about you. This is the attunement I'm talking about.
Yeah. None of
And
that.
not every caregiver has the capacity for that. And some are just plain trying to survive. So we're not trying to throw blame anywhere for parents. But at
No.
the same time, we have to look at and say, we still had needs that went unmet. And
Exactly.
what does that look like?
My mom, as we talked
And for a
about.
lot,
Oh, sorry to interrupt, Karma. Keep going.
I was going to say, for a lot of us, it means wearing a mask. It means that fundamental truth inside of us says something, and I'm going to paraphrase, says something akin to if somebody saw the real me, they would reject me. If somebody saw the real me, they wouldn't like me. If somebody saw who I really am, that's not okay. They won't stick around. So we learn to put on that mask that is appealing. It's a it's an appeasement strategy so that we can get our needs met.
And there was, when you were saying that to me, and you also brought up, we're not blaming our parents here. I would like to also state that as the work that we've done and been doing, I recognize that my mom had a very traumatic uh, childhood herself, extremely. And she had never dealt with it. They didn't know how to deal with it back then. She wasn't dealing with it. And that was the best she could do. I'm not making excuses. I was absolutely, what happened to me wasn't right either. Her pushing across the hamburger helper and a glass of milk was the best she could do to feel like she was trying to maintain her, and then run back and dive into a book to feel better and escape everything. But I was just merely saying, and in this work, as I understand it, we're not holding our parents to blame or throwing blame on them. We're acknowledging what we didn't receive as children. And maybe, am I reparent ourselves? Is that so then?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not, we can't go and change their behavior. We could have the conversation. If our parents are living, we could have the conversation and try to get them to see what we saw and to understand our reality. And let's face it, for most of us, that's probably not going to happen. We have to face facts that that's probably not going to happen. Now, I'm not an advocate of just cut our parents off, just as a blanket statement either. But we have to look at what are the effects that we're carrying around of getting of being not receiving what we should have as a child. And when we look at those effects, now we have a place to work. This is where we can now take action. And what that looks like is really doing some deep digging. And we don't necessarily have to go all the way back into our childhood and retell our stories, although we can, and sometimes that is very healing. But to look at the effects of this chronic childhood neglect and say, wow, how can I meet this need? I'm going to do a quick infomercial. It's not my book, so I'm not even plugging myself here. But there's a book here called Running on Empty. It's kind of old, actually. It's from 2012. And it has a follow up that has some strategies on how to begin to fill your cup even more. And this is Running on Empty No More. And this is really talking about our relationships with other people. Running on Empty is talking about our relationship to ourselves, but then how that manifests outward with our relationships to other people. Running on Empty No More can really be helpful. And so these books are part of the resources that this retreat is based from, and how we can go back and reparent those parts of us and really fill our cup. Um, I know quite a while ago, I was introduced to the concept of the love cup. And I've used this terminology with my kids. I've used it with, use it with my partner. And it's my love cup is running on empty. I'm feeling undervalued. I'm feeling unseen. I'm feeling like when I cleaned that kitchen the other day and nobody said a word and I did the whole thing all by myself, I'm feeling underappreciated, undervalued. I think a lot of us can relate to those feelings and recognize that when I have a big reaction to those feelings, that big reaction isn't about today's kitchen. It's about all the times that I felt that way before. So having these empty cups when we're young are really, really magnified when we have a cup that's running on low as an adult. And it does impact our relationships. It impacts even our emotional attunement with others.
And then we start to do things like overgive, overfunction, minimize ourselves. How about this for just a simple one? You're in work all day and you have such craziness going on, you don't feed yourself or go to the bathroom because hey, you know what I mean? Those meetings, all of the simple things. That's what I'm trying to bridge it over to. Is you might not even realize how it's happening in your day.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, Kharma, you said something, and I want to just touch on that. You said I'm not plugging my book. I would like you to actually, if you don't mind, tell your website so anybody that's wondering more about you, what's your website? How can they
Yeah,
find?
website. Yeah, my website is soulrhythmsvibes.com. And we can throw a link probably into our podcast here.
Yep.
And Soul Rhythms has been around for a really long time. And the reason that I refer to it as that is because also the rhythm of the drum. Recreational music making was my first form of therapy as I moved through this process of an evolution of learning. And it's one of those, ancient indigenous forms of like before we knew about therapy, we had drums. And so you'll see a lot of that on the site as well as these types of retreats and things.
Cool. I just want people to be able to punch in if they want to find out more about you. And she's also with Sage Collective, and we'll be holding groves as we open that up too. So keep this all in mind when you're watching. Let's talk about the body now and switch over to that because as you, I am a follower of yours, and we talk about the body up. Not trying to work it all out up here. But so I can't just think my way out of this, of what this mother wound that I have. My body learned what was safe, and for me, what was safe is when my protector came out. But we learn what's safe, and for some of the other, children, or we're adults now, but for some of us when we were children, we learn to shrink away. It was I guess my question to you is this. I can go to my therapist and try to talk about this, but it's not stopping what's coming up and bubbling up inside my body. So when we talk about this, how do we work with the body to help, because the mind isn't going to take care of all this.
Yeah, because let's face it, Jason, this essentially works in the default mode network of the brain. And for people who are unfamiliar with what the default mode means, it's an interconnected, it's basically the interconnections between all of the hemispheres of the brain, our cortex to our hippocampus. Basically, it's kind of the tracks, if you can picture like the tracks of a toy train and how it just goes and does its thing. It's the tracks that our brain takes, and they're the default settings, if you will. So these live in the default settings. This means that these experiences color our world. These experiences are part of our autobiography because that's what the default mode is really essentially in charge of is who are we? How do we operate in the world? Where's our place? What's our purpose? And it's also in charge of rumination. And so this default mode definitely, these programs that we have about who we are, how is safe is the world, how do we operate within it, it's running like a background app in our brain. It's really, really elusive. It's really hard to catch something that is running in the default mode, because it's essentially unconscious or subconscious. And so when we start to look at what can manifest from this mother wound, we talk about that overfunctioning, overgiving. This is something that's just, well, yeah, everybody does it. If you're a good person, this is what you do. That is absolutely a default mode truth that's in our brain, right? And it colors what we see as opportunities. It takes away those opportunities. We just don't even see the opportunities to receive as opposed to give. And it calls us, almost compels us into that way of being and operating. And so the reason that it's so difficult to get to, though, is because it is programmed in before we actually have verbal memory. So much like a computer where if you ever downloaded a file and you've downloaded it, you saved it, but you can't remember the name of it, that's essentially what our pre-verbal memories are. They're unnamed files. So they're in there, they're in the brain, they're in the body. We just can't pluck that memory out because we don't have a name to go pluck from. And so what happens is it lives here in the body, and our body reacts, and our body compels us to act as if. And so when we start to feel it in the body, we start to feel that need to like lean in and overgive, we can recognize it, and we can go into the body and take a breath. We can go in and regulate the body and say it's okay to make a different choice. But that moment that we feel it in the body, that's our cue that there's something there. There's something that's in that default.
This is just a question. Do what our parents say to us, is that live in the default mode network too? What they said, and then the way that we felt when they said that to us as a little kid. You're doing that wrong. Don't touch that. Get to your room.
Yeah. And not just what they say, but what they don't say, Jason, lives in the body. So, for example, a parent who says, "What's wrong with you? Why are you always messing up?" Okay, this is going to lodge itself in the default mode. And you know what it's going to show up as? Our inner critic. Our inner critic is going to say those words to us. And chances are good, it's going to be in our own voice, but that's really where it came from. Now, if you think about it, as a child, we screw up, we do something boneheaded. We know we screwed up. We're not stupid.
Yeah.
But we screw something up, and our parent just looks at us and shakes their head and walks away. Feel that feeling.
Yeah, disappointment.
That feeling of disappointment, that feeling of letting someone down, probably embarrassment,
rejection,
abandonment, judgment. That's all going in the body. And these now become triggers for us. If this happens often enough and we're one time, a one off, it might hurt. It's going to sting us. But if that's how our parent parents us, I can guarantee you that person that we're describing, they're going to have a trigger around shame. There's going to be a trigger around abandonment and, many other feelings.
Their body doesn't remember when their parents said that to them and how they started crying and ran to their room, jumped on their beds, shoved their face in their pillow.
Right.
And nobody was there to comfort.
Or maybe we didn't because that wasn't safe.
You're right. Maybe they shrunk and just sat there. All right, are you ready for a little mid session reset? I've got another poem for us. I'm gonna play some music. Let me find something. See if that comes in here. Might not be able to bring the music in. Let's see. Oh no, you know what? We're not going to. Oh. If you don't mind, everyone, just give me 1 second because I do want to have this music real fast, and then I should have had this ready. I'm very sorry, everyone. No, okay, I'm not going to work. We're going to hear this poem that I have to tell us, or read for us, and I'm not exactly sure why I do these in the sessions. I like having quote banks and poems just to reflect on. So sorry for no music tonight. I always do like to have it, but we're gonna list this poem without music. No one taught me how to stay inside myself, how to feel something and not abandon it, how to need without apology. So I am learning now, slowly, awkwardly, to sit with what rises, to not run, to not fix, to not disappear, to place a hand on my own chest and say, you can stay. You can stay this time. You can stay. So here's some, how'd that poem feel before I run forward?
Thank you for asking. It actually was interesting. It brought forward to me a revelation from my own experience with this. Is it okay to share that?
Oh, please, please.
So, in my upbringing, I was brought up by my grandparents. I wasn't brought up by my parents. My mom, much like you just described, was kind of my sister. And I can remember from as long all the way back to my memory beginning, I knew how to read. And from accounts of my family, I learned to read at the age of 4. And I can remember sitting at the dining room table, eating my food with my nose in a book, just eating, and always was a voracious reader. But one of the things that was really notable as an adult is that when I would tuck my nose in a book, I could tune everything out around me. My kids, my pets. If I started reading a book at work, forget it. People couldn't talk to me. I just wasn't even checked in. My ears switched off. And it wasn't until I was older that I realized this was a coping mechanism. This was making myself small. This wasn't a precocious reader that just loved books, although, yes, I do. Just plugged 2 of them here. But this was a coping strategy for me as a child to tune out the chaos around me and to avoid, to make myself small, to be quiet and inobtrusive to my family. And I realized that this was something that was modeled to me by my mom. And it was one of those things that she was always really good at. And even though she didn't exactly raise me, the fact is that I saw her do this too. This was her coping strategy. We were both raised in the same house, 2 decades apart, and we have the same coping strategy. And so it's just one of those things that came to me as you were reading that we were taught it wasn't safe to be seen. It was much safer to be behind a book. It gave us an excuse to withdraw and to hide. And in doing so, we didn't have to feel the feels that we had at what was going on around us.
Even in your share right there, identified too, because we have some parallels there. And I watched my mom jump into escapist reading, and I find myself doing that, So.
And it seems really innocuous as an adult, right? It seems really innocuous. After all, what is more socially acceptable than reading a book? But if we're escaping through it, if we're numbing out with that book, it is an escape. It is one of those, we could call it a coping strategy. And if we're tuning out our own kids or our own loved ones, it's pretty maladaptive.
Why does it feel unsafe for us to have needs? Why does it feel
Mm,
unsafe to ask to go to the bathroom during a meeting when you're about to pop?
yeah, because when we were young and we had needs, they either went unmet or they were minimized or we were ridiculed for them. But our needs weren't validated, they were invalidated in some sort of way. And what we learned is that it's just not okay to have needs. And as adults, we don't use our voice to advocate for them because it's not okay to have needs lives in the default mode as a truth.
So I mentioned reparenting earlier. What does that look like for someone that's hearing this word or even a little bit new to the work? I mean, even I feel like I've been trying to reparent for a while and I'm still very, very new.
Yeah, so reparenting is where we start to meet those needs ourselves. We recognize we have the right to have needs. Let's begin there. We have the right to have needs. Let's recognize those needs. Let's advocate for those needs. Let's let those needs be met. Let's meet them ourselves. And if we can't, we need to advocate for those needs to be met. Create boundaries for ourselves. So when we start to overgive, it's like, whoa, hold up a second. This is something we have to learn to do though. And the first step comes with awareness. Oof, I'm overgiving over here. I'm feeling it in my body. I'm running on E. And now how can I set some boundaries so that I don't overgive? Or I'm giving and pouring into someone's cup while they pour back into mine and it's reciprocal. We start to use our voice. We start to feel more comfortable speaking our truth. And we start to incrementally make changes that over time add up to filling our own cups.
When I overgive, and I do, I'll overgive till I explode because I'm not super good at implementing the boundaries yet. So I'll overgive and overgive and overgive past my point that I'll start resenting and then I'll blow up. And that might have been what I did when I was a little kid in all of this. Where I learned this, not being able to say no.
Yeah.
I took
And
care.
let's lean into your share just then. What is the feeling that you just described after you overgive and overgive? What is that feeling?
Resentment and frustration.
Yeah. So now this is how we gain that awareness. Oh, frustration, resentment. When I'm feeling that in the body, oh, wait, this means I'm overgiving. Let me reverse course. Let me set some boundaries. Let me take care of me. One of the things that when we don't get nurturance as a child, we feel like we don't deserve it. We feel like it's something that we shouldn't even give ourselves. So we do need to take some time to have boundaries, nurture ourselves, allow ourselves to be able to have what we need in a regular basis.
And I don't think I learned boundaries very good. We'd have to go into a bunch of reasons of why that didn't happen with me, but I did a lot of trying to please my mom. It was her and I. I'm an only child and I'm caught with her a lot when I can't be with my grandparents. And there's a lot of trying to not realizing it, but she was unhealthy and I was trying to please her. So, what would you say? So, let me think about how I want to ask this. I'm trying to figure out a way to bridge to help people understand because it's kind of hard to, even when I say, I'm trying to give out examples of not going to the bathroom in the meeting. Your boss wants you to stay late and work when you're not willing to. You need to be with your family. You have your own reasons to say no, but you just don't say no. These kind of reasons, I'm trying to get people to kind of connect back and see this kind of stuff and hear what we're saying, not just the people that are tuning in and are healers or in the healing mode, they get what we're saying already. But I've got some people there's people that are watching that are kind of looking through the keyhole and trying to figure this part out. And I'm trying to help them even understand of what this feels like for them.
Yeah. And one of the things that is really common that we see is poor self-discipline, right? How many of us know it's good to exercise, have the gym membership and pay for it, and still don't go? How many of us know that eating healthy, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, lean meats, we've got it in the fridge and that's where the salad goes to die, right? And so we know these things, and yet we can't motivate ourselves to do these things. We know that we have to go to work on time, and sometimes we run late. But for people who are chronic procrastinators, maybe you're a chronic procrastinator and you can just pull that, that work project out, in a 24-hour marathon. But where this comes from is, as children, that guidance piece was missing. Our parents didn't guide us, they didn't teach us. Maybe they were just punitive, and all we had to worry about was not getting caught, right? But we weren't actually shown what was the right way to do things. And not just right for our parents, but like, here, have some self discipline and eat your dinner before you have the cookie. Or let's get moving. Or, we have to do our homework, or we can't go out and play. For a lot of children raised in super permissive households, they'll look back and say, oh my God, my childhood was fabulous. My parents were my best friends. This is the guidance piece that they were probably missing the entire time. And so we can't just look at it and say, oh, it's just about protection. It's just about nurturing. No, it's also about guidance. And this is the part where, like, it's funny because one thing we speak to is you can look at an entire family. You can be one of, how many kids are you, Jason?
Biologically one, and then bigger when the stepkids fall in. But yes.
Yeah, yes, you can be from a huge family. And no adult child will have the same experience or memories as each other,
Yeah.
even though you spent most of your life with each other.
Yeah, I
My
see that.
sister-in-law have completely different memories, but there are certain things that were very, very similar, and one of those was guidance. Neither of us received guidance. She was raised by my mom. I was raised by the grandparents. And it's a sneaking suspicion my mom was probably never given guidance either. And so we do have similar wounds. We do have similar tendencies.
What do you see with all of us when you see people starting to step into this work and do the work that we're talking about? What do you see then start to happen?
Well, we have to grieve what we didn't get. For some of us, like, we look at the 5 stages of grief, right? Denial. Oh boy, I'll tell you what. I know when my sister started this healing journey, holy cow, it was like the question, how did I not see this? How did we not, they came up often. Denial. We'll go into denial. We'll say, no, everything was great. Everything was wonderful. And then we're like, wait, I can't unsee that thing or unfeel that thing. And then we go into, what's the next stage? Anger. Anger. There's this bargaining. Well, maybe if I talk with my parents that things will get better and I'll get what I needed, even though I never have yet.
Mm-hmm.
We also get angry at what we didn't get angry at the effects of what we didn't get having on us and how that has impacted our world. It's how it's impacted our relationships, perhaps even with our children or our spouses. We get angry. We get sad. We get sad at what we didn't get. We get sad at the relationship we always wanted to have with our parents but couldn't because we just couldn't reach them. And eventually we come to acceptance. But acceptance usually comes after we've learned to start filling our cup.
After we quit screaming at our parents for what they, you know what I mean, going back in and trying to get them to see what they didn't do right for us and getting in that battle, and they're like, we don't see it like that, and all that push and pull that can go on for years and years and years.
And our parents, here's the thing, they probably don't see what we see because it's probably normal to them. It's probably perfectly normal to them to not have an emotionally attuned relationship with their children. They probably didn't get that. So when we come to them and we say, oh my gosh, you do realize that like our childhood was pretty screwed up. You do realize that like you weren't the parent of the year. That's not going to go over very well.
Didn't with mine.
Because most of the time, what actually people hear back from their parents is, well, you had a better childhood than I did. And that's probably accurate. Doesn't make it not hurt, doesn't make it any better, but it's probably accurate, you know? And so here's the important part of this is two things can exist at the same time. They can sit here and say, we did the best that we could, and we can say, yeah, you did. They can say, you had a better childhood than we did. Yeah, I did, and I'm grateful for that. I can have gratitude for that, and I can still look over here and say, this still sucked and it still impacted me. And I think that the generations older than ours struggle with that. There is a big struggle with this can exist with this. And that fixed mindset is something that, you know, we can't control them, but we can definitely hold both of those in our own hands.
Carl Jung says the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents.
Yeah. Is it okay if I speak to a phenomenon going on right now?
Please.
So I'm not a big Reddit fan for many reasons, but I will say that some of the things that are trending on Reddit and other social media, there's kind of two camps. There's people coming on and they're talking about, oh, we're just ghosting our parents because they're not hearing us. They're not capable of hearing us. They don't see what they've done to us, whether it was through abuse or neglect. And then you have the camp of the parents who are like, my kids just ghosted me. And they're incensed. They don't understand why. And they don't understand how their responses, if their child decided to talk to them about it, were, you know, taken in a negative way. And so I feel like I want to speak to this, which is, you know, where do we set our boundaries? How do we set our boundaries when we are reparenting ourselves and we don't want to be re-traumatized or re-neglected again? Without saying, I'm just going to be part of cancel culture, because cancel culture really isn't solving the problem. And unless our parents are continuing to be abusive, continuing to be, let's face it, as adults, if they're neglectful, that's on them, right? But unless they're being harmful to us or our children, cancel culture is just, it's not actually solving the problem. And the problem lives inside of us. And so when we learn to do the reparenting, we don't feel the need to just cancel someone and reject them. We don't feel the need to be punitive. Some people I've seen online are really punitive. Let me give my parents the treatment that I got. And it's like, wow, I mean, that is probably the opposite of reparenting. This is letting our angry inner child rage, right? Which maybe it needs to, but maybe it doesn't need to at them.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about this and we really get into, again, that running empty no more, it gives us really great ways to decide how close do we want to allow them in our world. And my litmus test for that, simply put, is how far do I have to hold someone from me so that I can love them, but I can love myself? That's my litmus test. And that's what I would just encourage the listeners here and all of us to really lean into. We don't have to have a checkbox, but we can really do that check-in in a fast sort of way to make those boundaries known.
So, the mother wound and what we've been discussing tonight, this isn't about going back and getting something different from them. It's about learning how to give ourselves what wasn't there.
And grieving what we didn't get. That's a big part of this. Giving ourselves the grace to grieve what we didn't get. To look at that and say, that's a legitimate need that went unmet, that has informed me, that has shaped me. And I can grieve that. And I can move forward differently.
And to do a little quick seg and have a little fast infomercial on Sage, this is why we're building what we're building. And it's why Sage exists, because understanding what Kharma and I are talking about here is not enough. We need to have a space where it's actually safe to feel and to be honest. We need these, like you have seen me and Kharma doing tonight, we need these safe spaces to be able to talk to each other and feel, I feel safe with Kharma. And I'm able to discuss this stuff with her, knowing that I'm in a safe space and what we're going to do is okay. And what we're building at Sage Collective with these small facilitator-led circles is it's a consent first. There's no fixing and there's no pressure. We hold ourselves in groups and talk like this, and we learn from people like Kharma. And I just wanted to seg from where we were to once again tie back in why I'm doing Unmasked, why Kharma's here, why she's part of Sage, is because this is a big healing endeavor that we're going through. And Sage is a place where you don't have to overgive. You don't have to shrink or perform to belong. And that's what we're building for. So, Kharma, I just wanted to take a quick seg and let people know why we're doing what we're doing. And I love doing this show, and I could sit around and talk for you for hours doing this. But we're really trying to, this is cutting edge stuff. And like I've said before, I've sat in therapy offices since I was a small child. And what we're doing here, what we're doing in the retreat, what we're doing at Sage, we're out in front. And I know it because I'm the one that's needed this help this whole entire time. I'm the one that's been from therapy office to this office to that office to this type of modality to these type of pills. Do you know what I mean? So I know when something's working. That's what I'm saying. And this works. As we start to we're at 58 minutes, and I know you've had a real long day. Is there anything that I didn't touch on that you wanted to speak about that you were hoping I would bring up and I didn't?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off of what you just shared about Sage, because these are relational wounds. Whether it's big T trauma of, abuse with through childhood, whether it's little T trauma that is things that we should have gotten that we didn't get. These are the seeds of things like PTSD and CPTSD, because we have these events that happen as adults that go all the way back to the root, that we didn't experience what we should have, or we experienced things that we shouldn't have. So when we talk about childhood trauma, it actually is one of the biggest risks for an adult developing PTSD or CPTSD, which we know are crippling sometimes to us in our daily life. And so relational wounds can't be healed alone. Relational wounds have to be healed within a relational container. That's why therapy for some people really work well, because you have this person who is hearing you, seeing you, can mirror for you, can validate what you're saying, who can provide what you didn't get. Not all therapists are built the same. And I think there's something to be said for the medicine of community. And that is where I'll plug the book that is yet to be all the way completely published. It's in process. But the relationship of healthy community and healthy individuals, like that is where we're headed with Sage. To be able to sit in a community and speak our truth and practice these skills, not just with one safe person, not just with one therapist, but with a whole array of people. And to be in a safe space to be able to practice these skills, because they don't come innate to us. They were literally conditioned out of us. So for us to reclaim them back, we have to practice. And to be able to practice with more than one person, to practice with a whole community of people, this is where we make that really, really big evolutionary leap from, yeah, I feel safe with my therapist or maybe my super close friends, but in the rest of the world, I operate differently. We'll default back, right? This is how we change that. This is how we shift the needle on that paradigm and learn to operate in the fullness of self. So sage is really near and dear to my heart for that reason, because it truly is the medicine of community.
Final question. If someone tuned in tonight, they kind of saw the ad and saw Mother Wound, thought this is interesting, listen to what we had to say, they're kind of blown up a little bit in the way of, wow, whoa. What would you want them to know from this part, from the, oh shit, man, that part?
Yeah, if you recognized yourself in anything that we just talked about, and there's so many other parts to it too. We don't have anywhere nearly as long as we could talk about it, right? But if you recognize yourself in this and you're like, whoa, mind blown, I want more information about this. Those books, will put a link in there. You can reach out to us here, but just know that you're not alone. You're not alone. This is more common than you know. And most of us never escape childhood unscathed by some of what we've been talking about. And some of us have really big wounds around it. And some of us may not even know until you encounter one of these podcasts or something that draws your attention to it. But no, you're not alone. And there is community support, and there you can also seek professional help, and there's no shame in that. Because really, when we operate from the fullness of self, when we tend this mother wound, and we can start pouring into a full love cup on our own and within our group of people who also pour in, man, we change our world. It's just it's something that is, we're here for you, and there's many resources available to start learning how to do it differently.
I feel good about all this and what we talked about tonight. And as usual, whenever I'm with you, I learn too. That is one of the reasons I sneak you on my show, is to have more time with you to pick your brain and talk about myself. And I know that's selfish, but I share it with everybody else too.
Is
Kharma?
it okay if I jump into the quote?
Oh, yes, please. I love this.
Yeah, shame dies when told in safe places. So when we share things that we hold in that shameful space of what we didn't get, or what we that we were subjected to, we free other people to be able to do the same. Talking freely about the things that we would normally hide because it's just not politically correct, or society doesn't accept it. What we're doing is we're destigmatizing it for all the other people who share this experience. And I, for one, am super proud of you, and super proud of what you're bringing out there into the world.
Thank you.
There is so much so much pain, so many people hurting, and they think they're alone. And what a gift to know that they're not.
And I was one of those people, Kharma, in my 20s, 30s, and even into my 40s, hiding from everyone. I shrank till I exploded. I didn't let people know what was going on inside me, but everybody knew something was going on inside me. And until it got so bad that I had an explosion, then I started healing and met you, and we're here now. But I share my story in the hopes of other people that it helps them. I don't share it to kind of, I don't share my story just to get my face out there at all. I share my story hoping that it helps people, because I would honestly rather do a music show. I love Unmasked. I would rather do music, but I do this to bring you to people, to bring Anissa to people, to bring what I've learned in the way of what's happened to me and what I've learned to that, so people can, like you said, try to find language and try to understand. But I know you've had a long night. I'm ready to let you go if you're ready to go, and I'm going to wrap up the show, and you'll be back on in just a few more weeks. We are always, the way that I do Unmasked is just like how I hit you up when we're kind of flowing through something. I'm like, mother wound, and so when we're on our next adventure, we'll be back and talking about that too. So
sounds great.
Thank you very much. You have an awesome night, and we will talk again soon for everybody on Unmasked. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So and that was Kharma Lindsey, founding facilitator with Sage Collective. She's also a therapist and there is much that Kharma does in both the Western world and in the spiritual world. If you want to get in contact with her, she did say her website earlier. I'm sorry that I don't have that in my note right now. We will put it in show notes. She's an awesome person. And if you are feeling compelled to reach out to her, there's 2 ways to go about this. One, go find her on the website and get in touch with her and start meeting with her. Go find out how it works with her. She hosts retreats. Another way is we're almost open. Sage Collective is very open. It was a little bit more of a larger build than I thought it was going to be, but I've really taken the time to make it beautiful inside the Sage server and what we're doing. So even though it's taking longer, man, I feel really good about the build. I feel good about what the ecosphere is turning into. And as soon as we open the doors for business and we start rolling and this is up, you'll be able to come right into a grove and hang out with Kharma and learn from her. And I'll be there too. So will Carol Ann. It's 8 o'clock. I've been broadcasting for 1 hour and 7 minutes. It's 8:09. I feel really good about tonight's show. I'm pretty jazzed off of it. And I wish I could have got my music set up. You know, that's what live is. One little detail wasn't taken care of, and right now I can't play music, and that bums me out. But you know what? I hope that you out there, whether you're on Substack, Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, and any of the replays on those, I hope you got something from tonight's show. This is a really big deal, this mother wound. And there's father wound too, by the way. These are big deals, and it's what affects most of us. When I listen to my friends, the coworkers that I used to work with, when I listen to people talk, what always affects us really always goes back to how we were raised. I know afterwards there's accidents, medical traumas, bad relationships. There's other things that affect us. But most of that, like she was talking about, we make decisions from our default mode network that kind of what we learned in childhood will make those decisions in adulthood. I know I did that. What I was trained on in my childhood walked right on into my adulthood with me. The not good things that I learned just carried right on through into my adulthood and the choices and the decisions that I made there. Like I've told you before, I don't do Unmasked to see my own face on YouTube or to hear my voice. I do Unmasked in the chance that if this broadcast that we did tonight reaches just one person, worth it, absolutely worth it. And that is the goal of Sage Collective too, is to get out here and reach as many people as we can, offer healing like Kharma was talking about to people, because we desperately need this, and I know it. I understand that I'm more of an extreme case, and that's how I hold myself out, and I'm okay with that. A lot of people are in the middle that I talk about, and it's not as bad. The traumas aren't as bad. They're more little T traumas. But guess what, man? I don't really know the difference between a little T trauma and a big T trauma. It all affects us. Somebody could just had their dad really bawl them out once real hard, and it affects their life and decisions that are being made, and they don't realize this, and they don't even remember that it happened. So that's why I do this work. That's why I'm here tonight. That's why on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock, when I should be drinking a non-alcoholic Guinness, kicked back with Carol Ann, my babies are laying next to me, and we're watching A Modern Family and laughing. When I should be doing that, I'm here doing this, and she's upstairs watching and producing, making sure that my levels are right. We both think this is serious, and that's why we're building Sage. But enough of that for tonight. You know what? Everybody that's stayed with me so far, thank you so much. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being part of this movement. Take care of yourself. Go to the bathroom when you need to. Drink water when you need to. Say no when you need to. Say fuck off when you need to. Say I love you when you need to. Hug somebody when you need to. Until next time, everyone, as always, thanks for being here with me. Have a great night.